free teleclasses, teleclass series. And I want to thank all of you for being on tonight and for sending your questions in. We have quite a few questions, so I don't know if I'll get through all of them. And if you want to send questions in, you can still go to the website or the webinar page and click on the questions box and send in your questions that way. They will get to me, although they may not be answered tonight. Also, before we start, if you feel that you would like more questions and answers, we're looking at scheduling some ongoing question and answer time for people, something like this. And if you would send to me what would work for you, in other words, once a week, twice, every 2 weeks, something like that, and times of day that are good, we'll look at scheduling that as well for people. So let me know what your needs are. We're going to see if we can put that together for everybody. Okay, so we're going to begin in the name of Allah, the Merciful and the Compassionate. In the name of God, the Merciful and the Compassionate, we ask that the teaching and the guidance tonight is of the highest and is clear guidance for everybody and gives the deepest love and the deepest teachings that are needed so people can transform their lives in a positive direction. So, let's first of all begin tonight by discussing what we are doing here, really. Why are we on these calls? And just be clear sort of about our goal and our direction. The first thing is that essentially these teachings are about establishing an inner reality for people that helps them to find real happiness, love, and peace within themselves. These teachings are eclectic in the sense that they are applicable to any group, really any religion. I believe that they are sort of the central teachings of all religions. In other words, that the teachings of love and oneness and unity and the walking to God is really the same. In other words, no matter what your path is or what your religion is, in the inner worlds, in one's relationship to the divine, the teachings are pretty much the same. In other words, the walking is the same. So I like to say that this is the central teachings of all religions because it's the central pillars of all religions. Now, these teachings, of course, are Sufi. Sufism comes from the word purification, and purification essentially means what do we need to purify in order to be able to receive the divine light, love, and communication and guidance clearly and accurately within ourselves. So, again, in my experience of life, what I find is that when I'm harmoniously in touch with the divine, everything goes forward nicely for me. It's as if the wind is at my back and my sails are up and I'm sailing beautifully through clear waters. If I lose that connection to the divine, I find that I can get lost, I can find the waves get choppy, I can lose direction and not know where I am. So for safety in our world, to carry that connection is a key to our lives. One of the things we can say is that when we are really connected, we have a state of peace that is established inside of us and calmness, so that we're not anxious and we're not afraid. The second thing we can say is that when we're connected, we have love. There's a very deep state of love, and we're sitting in a radiance of love. In other words, that love is surrounding us. When we are connected, our negativity disappears. Our anger gets washed, and we begin to be able to clear and clean those things so that we don't experience it like that anymore. We end up starting to abide in a very deep place of, I wouldn't say necessarily happiness is the right word for it, although it certainly is happy, but I think it's something more transcendent. I would call it a deep inner state of peace a deep sense of connectedness and oneness and love, and that's established in our heart as a light. So the Sufi teachings are about finding that connection of love and light and peace and mercy and establishing that within our heart. How do we actually establish that, and how do we carry that so that our inner world is good? And then secondly, that reflects outwardly and can act to heal. In other words, it can heal our physical bodies. It can heal our emotional or psychological states. It certainly can heal our spiritual selves. And it also changes the reflection of the world back to us. In other words, the world is a reflection of ourselves. So what we have within us is reflected outside of us. When we change our inner state, the outer world changes with it. So Rumi once said in a beautiful quote, someone asked him, how do you learn to love? And he said, I don't teach people to love. He said, I teach people to clear the veils that keep them from loving. And this, for me, is the quintessence of Sufism. How do we clear the veils that keep us from love and light and beauty? Okay, now the last thing I want to say to kind of introduce this tonight, and then we'll go into the questions, I wanted people to understand, again, the basic walking of the Sufi way. I think it's an important piece to understand. We say that there are essentially 7 levels of reality. The first level we call the outside, the Malk, the thick world. The second level is the deep heart, or the Malakut. The third level is the soul world, composed of the divine qualities, or the Jabarut. The fourth level is the secret world, which is the doorway into the godly reality, where we start to really deeply know and are with God. The fifth level is the godly reality, where we're now inside the godly reality, and experiencing the ecstasy and the beauty of that light. The sixth level is called the Gnostic reality, or what's called the Ma'arifa. And the Ma'arifa is the divine wisdom or understanding that comes when we have so deeply purified ourselves that we actually see and hear through God's light. And then the seventh level is called the level of divine perfection, where our being is manifesting the godly aspects, the godly qualities within us, and we are complete in the manifestation of those godly qualities. So these are the 7 essential levels of being. Now, in these teachings, we are going to be working to bring people from the first to the second to the third to the fourth and the fifth levels. In other words, the initial teachings are how do we purify ourselves to walk through these levels. Now, these teachings are all geared to help people to come into what's called the world of Gnosis, or the Ma'arifa, which is the 6th level of being, and how to enter into that level, to reach the understandings of that level, and to have the walkings of that level. So Ma'arifa means that you have become illuminated with divine wisdom, that you are carrying the ocean of love within your heart, and that wherever you go, you act as a pole of goodness and well-being in the world. In other words, your presence will bring love and light and wonderment and healing to the world. So we're here to serve. We're here to bring peace and love to the world. So first we purify ourselves, and we reach the world of God. We become filled with this divine illumination from God, and then we bring that back to the people to serve this world, to help to make it a better place. So these calls are to introduce this. There will be a teleclass following this one that begins in January, which go over the foundational teachings that will allow you to walk through this process if you feel drawn to do that. In other words, it will go over the basic foundations to learn how to engage in the purification and walking process. So that will begin January 7th. So now, let's begin, and I'm going to take the first question. The first question is this: what does one do when a choice hurts another? I am considering pulling my daughter out of a small school that she's attending, and it will hurt the school financially and also hurt the teacher. My daughter's needs aren't being met by the school, and I have tried to work with the teacher since last year without any change. So what to do when one makes a choice that may hurt another? This is a very difficult question, and this is where the first thing is we really need to have the guidance from God, from Allah, the guidance from God that will allow us to have clarity about what to do. Now, first thing is, if the school is not meeting your daughter's needs, then that has to change. In other words, for you to continue to keep your daughter there, the school has to meet your daughter's the daughter's needs. And if they're unwilling to change, then we have a problem. In other words, if you have honestly spoken with them, as you say, and you've spoken with the teacher and it hasn't changed, then you're now at the next level, which is, in my opinion, you go back and you have to kind of speak to the teacher again one last time, and you say, look, this is not working. I'm not getting the needs met, and this is what is needed here. And you have a heart-to-heart discussion with that teacher. Now, knowing that you're withdrawing, if it doesn't change, may be the catalyst that's needed to open the door so that the teacher will change. When I look into it, I think the teacher can change, and I think the teacher needs the catalyst, and this will do it. So if you come and you speak with the teacher and really explain that if the change doesn't happen, you're going to have to withdraw. This may just be what's needed to make the change. Now, understand that we have to understand how God works. You are acting as the catalyst for change in that system. So if you look deeply, God wants the system to change, to become more loving, more open, more heartful, more present, more giving, so that the teacher is not yet meeting the heart of your child. So from God's perspective, God is always looking for evolution and what we call excellence, or ihsan. Ihsan means to have full excellence in whatever you do. Now, the highest level of excellence, we could say, is perfection. Perfection is when everything is perfect as God would have it be. In other words, how God would like it to be. It's considered perfection. Perfection is as if God were doing it. This is a very, very high level of being. So we're practically always walking towards Ihsan, and we're always walking in excellence because we're trying to move to that level. So the piece here that's important to realize is that God is trying to evolve that school as God is trying to evolve all of us. And when we don't listen, we get what we call a catalyst, or we get squeezed. In other words, something strong comes to us, like you may be withdrawing. And then if we listen and we go inside ourselves and we really take the time to find out what's needed and we make the change, then every single thing in reality will change for us. But if we don't make that change, then we sort of up the ante, and something stronger will happen, like you'll withdraw. And of course, if that doesn't create the change, then others will withdraw, and the school will probably eventually close. So this is how God works. God works with catalysts to make us change. Okay, let's go on to the next question. It says, Assalamu alaikum, dear Dr. Jaffe. There is a heaviness in my chest which sometimes causes pain, and I cannot and don't want to let it out. I feel like I have absorbed so much negativity and anger, besides the ones that I produce myself. And every time I try to make dhikr and open my heart, I'm afraid of causing more damage to myself and becoming even more angrier. I know I cannot change the world around me, but what would be the best thing to do to shield myself against being attacked, manipulated, and getting affected by negativity? Thank you in advance. Okay, so the first thing, this beloved is saying that there's a heaviness in his chest which sometimes causes him pain, and he doesn't want to let it out. Well, that's the first piece, is that when we absorb negativity from others, we have to move that negativity out in some way. Now, in the Sufi way, the best way to do that is through the process of tawbah. Tauba means to do certain dhikrs or chants which bring one back into the alignment with God so that the pain disappears. It washes the pain. So when we say chant, the Sufi word is dhikr. Dhikr means recitation. So we do what are called the Tauba dhikr to be able to wash this pain out of our heart. Now, the correct dhikr for this is Astaghfirullah al-Azim, which means, astagh means I ask for forgiveness from Allah, the Most Great. I ask for forgiveness from God, the Most Great. So if you want to move this heaviness out of your chest, you say Astaghfirullah al-Azim, and you ask, first you start with a prayer, you ask God to help you to release this pain. Then you can say in Arabic, Astaghfirullah al-Azim, or you can say in English, I ask forgiveness from God, the Most Great. And you repeat that as many times as needed until you feel that the anger begins to, and the negativity begins to release from inside of you. When you come to a place of peace and well-being, you're complete. Now, the next question is, how do I shield myself against being attacked, manipulating, and getting affected by any negativity? And the answer for this is very, very simple, but not easy to do. The answer has to do with your witnessing. If you stay focused on the name and on the light of God inside yourself, then the negativity will not come in. Okay, so let me repeat that. If you stay focused on the light of God or on the name, the negativity will not come in. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, again, in Sufism, we say Allah. When you say Allah, which is the name of God that we use, you'll see inside, if you close your eyes and you say the name, you'll either feel a peace coming into you or you will see light coming into you in your imagination. Okay, we call that the light of God or the feeling of God. And you're going to focus on that. So whenever you feel like you're being attacked, you can say Allah, feel the peace or see the light, and focus on it and try to stay with it. You will find that while you're staying with it, you have protection. So if you're having a hard time in a situation, you say the name, it will protect you. Okay? All right, good. Now, if you go further from that and you enter into a place, for example, I was in New York City, and I went into, I had to cut through a hotel. I had a friend of mine, a student staying at the Waldorf Astoria, and I went in my robes through the, I think it was called the Bear or something like that, the bar that was downstairs, and the Bull and the Bear or something like that. And I remember when I walked in, which is a kind of a stock broker bar, that there was a tremendous negativity. I felt the whole bar turn towards me with so much negativity. And I remember it was a powerful feeling of watching that come in. And I said, Allah. And as I said that, I could feel as if I was being surrounded by angels. I felt light coming all around me. And as it came around me, I felt so deeply protected, so deeply at peace, so full of love. And then as I went through the bar and came out the other side, I only felt love for everybody there and only felt good for everybody there. And I felt completely protected. So this is the type of way you can shield yourself. You say, how do I shield myself? Well, you shield yourself by saying the name Allah and letting the protection from the light and the name and the angels surround you and staying in repeating that. Now, if you go on further, well, I will teach you how to begin to close the holes, I call them the holes, that sometimes get in the way and sabotage that protection. In other words, that sometimes people will come in, we lose that witnessing, and we get lost. And so how do we change that? But that will be in the future. So thank you very much for your question, and I hope that answers it. And remember, if you do the tawbah, you will clear your heart, and you will clear your anger as well. So do the tawbah, astaghfirullah al-azim, at least 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 times, and the anger will wash out of you, and these attacks will disappear, and you will feel the peace of God around you, and the safety will come into you. Try that every day, 400, 500, 600. You can do more, as many as you need, until you establish yourself in that place of safety. And don't worry about the attacks. The attacks can really not hurt you. If you're with God, you will have the safety, and these attacks will not hurt you. Okay, nor will the negativity. Allah will protect you from all of this. Okay, thank you very much. All right, let's go on to the next question. We have a son and daughter who describe themselves as atheists, primarily due to their experiences with fundamentalist Christians. What suggestions do you have, especially regarding praying for them? I don't need them to choose my path, but I hope they find the path that leads to God. Yeah, this is, unfortunately, something that happens to many people today, that they go to a particular religion where their experiences actually cause them to turn away from God for whatever the reasons are, usually because they don't experience the people practicing what they're preaching. And this creates a sort of a sense of hypocrisy, and then the people turn away. Now, I personally believe that all of us are imperfect beings, and that we're all doing our best to walk through this world. So we have to be merciful. But there comes a point where we may step outside of that mercy, and then sometimes, particularly in situations like this, we close our heart. You can pray for them. It's said that we can always pray for anybody at any time, that praying is not intrusive, is not hurtful, and is not violating to anybody. So you can pray for your son and daughter. And the other thing you can do is make tawbah for them. You can say, oh God, oh Allah, I ask for forgiveness for my children. I ask for forgiveness for the people who turned them from God. I ask for forgiveness from the teachings that happened in the church where they went to that caused them to close down. And in asking for that forgiveness, when it's accepted, and if you ask enough, it will be, I'm sure, then a very, very deep light will be sent from God into their souls, and the souls will begin to return, and the safety and the protection will come back to them, and they will begin their opening again to God. Okay, I hope that answers your question, and thank you for sending that question in as well. Okay, now we're going to go to the next question here. This question comes from Mexico, and it is, I have been on the Sufi path for a year now. I'm still afraid to live, and there is no signs of love in my life. What should I do in order to free myself from fear and allow love to come into my daily life and leave isolation behind? I'm doing some of the practices, but it seems things are not moving. No money, no job, no partner, no love. Thanks. Salams. Okay, so the first thing, remember about the Sufi path, there's a couple of components that are really important, and I like to talk about three of them. One of them is the practices. So important to do the tawbah, astaghfirullah al-azim, and the remembrance of the name Allah is as much as you can. Now, for the new people in the upcoming class, creating a life of love and happiness through the Sufi way and healing, we will talk about tawbah and we'll talk about remembrance. For those of you that have been on the call walking with me for some time, you know these practices, so you'll need to do them. If you're doing the remembrance and you're not moving, you need more tawbah. In other words, you need to say astaghfirullah al-azim more often and more deeply, and it's possible that how you're saying it is what I call not cracking the veils. In other words, you may be doing it from your mind, and you're not doing it from your heart, or the heart may need to be more sincere and may need to follow the Tauba principles, the three aspects of Tauba that we've laid out in the other Tauba classes. In other words, to truly feel repentance and to choose not to do it again, and to make a true Tauba around that. So those aspects may not be functioning as deeply as they should be for you. The second thing, remember, the practices are the first part. And, of course, the praying is very important, to make prayer and to ask Allah to help you, so that Allah sends the help, the angels and the teachers inside of you to help you really make the change. So, again, the praying is very, very important. Second step is the readings. Very important to get the knowledge. Remember, the knowledge of the way, the knowledge of each of the stations are very, very important. So, as you're beginning, you should be reading Music of the Soul, or He Who Knows Himself Knows His Lord, and read those chapters on pain and suffering on the nafs, the first station of the nafs, and go through those, and they will help you. And when you hit your anger, again, do the Tauba, and we'll be talking about anger later, not tonight necessarily, but later on in the teachings, about how do you really clear anger when it comes up, how do you wash it out of you. So those pieces will help you a lot. So remember the practices and the readings. And again, the last step is the purification work, which I'm a very strong proponent of. I deeply believe if you're going to feel good inside, that it's important to purify yourself. Okay, purify of what? Purify yourself of any negative emotions, of any negative thoughts, or of any negativity that we have inside of ourselves. So if you find yourself with the negative voices, we have to purify those voices. If you find yourself with a negative emotion such as anger or fear or anxiety, we have to purify those things. Again, how do we do that? At this stage of the game, through Tauba and through the remembrance of the name Allah. Later, as we go further, there are specific advanced prayers that can be done. There are qualities that can be used, and there can be deeper clearing of the images that are causing the pictures to form. In other words, these places inside of you they're created inside, and you can change those. This is the work that we need to do. This is how we can get out of the negativity, by watching this. And we need to be vigilant. I mean, we all have negativity. We need to be vigilant with those aspects of self. Okay. Just a couple brief thoughts for the group generally. Always remember that the first thing we need to do is to change ourselves. In other words, if our lives aren't working, it means somewhere we have to change ourselves. And there was a hadith about this where the Prophet said, peace and blessings be upon him, that the world essentially was a reflection of ourselves, that everything that comes to us is really from us. So that in other words, what happens outside of us is a reflection of what is inside of us. So if we're not, for example, if we're not having love in our lives, then we go back inside and we say, okay, how do we need to open up to love? If we don't have abundance in our lives, then how do we open up the generosity to receiving inside of ourselves? How do we receive and open up to having more abundance inside of ourselves? So things like this. So we're always understanding that we work from within. If we want to make a change outside, we change the inside. Many people try to change the outside, but if you don't change the outside, if you don't change the inside, generally the outside won't change either. So in spiritual circles, we understand that. We say the first thing is change the inside and then change your behaviors. Change the inside and then change the behaviors. And this is a much better way to make change. Now, another thing we can do is we can understand that love is all around us, that love permeates everything. Love is a vibration that permeates the entire universe. And if we open and receive and drink that love will melt anything inside of us and open our being. So by learning to feel the love and open to the love, we can begin to change everything around us. So that's the next piece here is how do we, open up to that love. Okay, so thank you very much for your question, and I appreciate that. It was a very good question, by the way. And if you apply those things, I'm sure that there'll be changes that you'll find. Okay, next question coming in from New York. How do you confront the darkness? A beloved told me that you had advised her that she had to confront the darkness to clear it. I've been confronting the darkness for almost 2 years now, and every time it clears and I am with Allah and the light, I get slammed again. I'm really sick of this, and it's starting to make me feel helpless. I know everything is from Allah ultimately, but I don't get it. Why, when I am bowing and turning into Allah deeply, does this always happen? Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, these are really excellent questions. The first thing is, remember that facing the darkness is half of the equation, maybe not even a half, maybe a third. That, in other words, we have to face the darkness and look at it. But before we face the darkness, we need to establish our connection to Allah more deeply. So it may be that you're needing to do more of the practices, in particular the Tawbah first, to establish that connection more deeply. Then know that you are going to be challenged and that you will get slammed, as you call it, and that happens to all of us. We all get slammed. But these are the teachings. In other words, each time we get slammed, don't run away from being slammed. Go inside and understand what Allah is bringing you. In other words, if Allah brings a judgment, what is slamming? If Allah brings a judgment against you, or somebody is judging you, then go inside and say, how am I open to being hurt by this judgment? What is the weakness in myself that allows me to be judged? And say, Astaghfirullah al-Azim, and wash the place of weakness out of yourself so that the judgments don't hurt you anymore. Okay, if somebody comes after you aggressively, like you're being challenged by some type of aggressive person in your life, then go inside yourself and say, okay, where am I afraid? Where am I backing down? Where don't I have strength? Okay, and you'll find it. You'll see a place of weakness. Maybe there's a little place inside that was afraid, your little child or something like that. We all have children inside of ourselves. And go inside and allow yourself to wash that place inside yourself. In other words, so that there's no fear, that you don't have that fear inside yourself. Okay? And that will also help you very, very deeply if you do that as well. Okay, so don't be afraid of these things. And don't be afraid of being slammed, and just know that everything that comes to us is for us. Everything that comes to us is for us, and not be afraid of it. We have to work with it. We have to really stop blaming. We have to not blame others. Don't blame others out there, my beloveds. Remember, it's from us. What happens is from us. It's for us. I've been slammed many times in my life. And in the beginning, I used to get angry, and then I got blaming, and then I got aggressive. And then finally one day I realized that it wasn't about anybody out there. It was about me. That it was all about me. That this was that this was a creation from myself. And that when I began to change myself, really, so much of the slamming disappeared. It really wasn't happening anymore. It kind of dropped away. So go ahead and not be afraid, and allow yourself to remember the name, and work with the slamming until there comes a point where it stops. And when it stops, you have mastered it. You are the master of it. And that's an amazing moment. And, of course, then we have a time of vacation. We say a Jamal time, where we get to really feel good, and we get to experience what it's like to be mastering that aspect of reality and go through life for a while in that vacation time. And then, of course, Allah will then bring up something new for us to learn. Okay, so thank you very much for your question. I appreciate it. And let's go on to the next question. This is coming in from Pennsylvania. So I sometimes notice my breathing while doing remembrance. When my remembrance deepens, my breathing seems to change. Is there a way to use my breathing to help me enter the river of love? That's beautiful. Very nice, beautiful question. Thank you very much. Yes, and the answer is yes. As you work with the name, there are many, many ways to say the name. And each way you say it will shift different aspects of the dhikr. We call it the dhikr of Allah. So in the beginning, of course, you want to say the name Allah out loud, if you can. Now, you can say it silently, but you can say it quietly out loud is better. And why is that? Because, first of all, it keeps you centered on the name. Otherwise, we tend to get sleepy or we space out, and then we lose the name. So you say Allah deeply and quietly to yourself. Now, when you want to enter into the river of love and the love stream, the way you do that is by softly elongating the A. So instead of, you would be saying Allah. So it's an elongated A. And you can elongate it as long as you want. And as you're elongating the Ah sound, it brings in the love vibration and brings it through. Now, if you are in the state of purification, in other words, let's say you're wanting to shift, something that's bothering you, then you would not use the elongated A. You would use sort of a static A. So you'd go Allah, Allah. So you're using a strong A, and the A acts kind of like a can opener. It goes and the A cuts into whatever you're struggling with, and then the La moves it out. Allah, and you move it out. So you want to use more of a static A. So elongated A for entering in the love and the gentleness, a static A, and a strong accented static A when you want to purify yourself. Okay, thank you very much for that question. Excellent question. Okay, next question is coming in from Pasadena, California. Why does Allah take away what you love most, the person you love? For instance, we all need some help and counseling for these terrible economic and emotional times. Please, how to go on when you feel life is no longer worth living and children cast you inside and life is suffering? Okay, so again, I want to emphasize here, this is a difficult time for everybody. It comes because collectively we've made collective decisions that are wrong. In other words, we have three sort of rays that affect our reality. The first one is our individual choices. The second one is our family choices, and the third one is our sort of global choices, or our collective choices. So what that means is any choice that I make in myself affects me. Any choice that my family makes affects me. And any choice that what my collective consciousness makes affects me. In other words, if I'm a Sufi, the result of all the Sufis that are in my tariqah affect me. If I'm a man, all the choices of men have an effect on me. If I'm a woman, all the choices of women have an effect on me. If I'm American, all the choices of America have affect me. So these are the collective choices. So the first thing is to try to understand, again, what are we doing in ourselves individually that is causing this? So we have to stop crying and go inside and say, okay, what have I done in myself that could be changed, or how could I carry this differently in myself so that I can change what's going on? And again, when you find that, and you will get those answers, you make the tawbah, astaghfirullah al-azim, and wash that out until it changes, and you will see that as soon as you change that in yourself, you'll see the outside begin to change. Then secondly, now you've got to look at your family. And now you've got to really be honest with your family. In other words, sit down with your family and say, what's going on in my family that they're having the reactions that they're having? In other words, are they doing something inside that's not right? Or is there somebody in the family doing something inside that's not right? And remember that in family situations, to clear the family, if you're having trouble with your children or your husband or your wife, it's a family process. We have to look at it together. We have to look at all the aspects of the family and work it through together. So sit down with your husband or sit down with your wife, sit down with your children and ask them, what is really happening in your heart? How do you feel? And what's going on? And then all work together. If you do that, everything will begin to change, and you'll see the positive results will come in. So be positive, trust the law, and know that everything can change in 1 minute. And I have seen this 1,000 times. You say Astaghfirullah, and it will change. Your children will change, the situation changes, everything changes. So trust Allah, do your readings, do your practices, make tawbah, sit down with your family, find out what's going on with them, and make the change. And I think the key here, remember, is to always listen deeply and honor what the people need. In other words, what do your children need? Listen to them. Don't just hear what they're saying, hear their hearts. What are their hearts longing for? What are they crying for? And find the truth of what they need, the truth of it, and serve them. For me, I'm serving all the time. I'm always listening to people's hearts and working very hard to serve them. In other words, it doesn't mean that I'm ignoring myself. I know what my heart needs as well. But in relationships with people, it's always to be in service to them, to understand them, to be there for them. So don't be afraid, but support them, and you'll see changes happening. Okay, thank you very much, and I'm sure that everything will be fine for you. All right, let's go on to the next question. This is coming in from Florida. It says, how can you work with anger? It just bubbles up out of the blue and I'm not even clear what triggers it. I can be driving in a car and it's like all-consuming. I've tried breathing in the love, remembrance, and it may pass after several attempts, but it keeps bubbling up. And then exhausted and I cannot function and I have to sleep. How can I find peace in this? Okay, this is a very common problem is anger. A lot of people are struggling with anger, and the globe is struggling with anger. It's sort of a global anger that's happening right now for all sorts of different reasons. So some of this is probably from yourself. Some of this may not be from yourself. It may be from others that you're just kind of sitting in the ocean of that. So the key is to go more deep in yourself. In other words, anger, when it bubbles up, comes from a source. Okay? So go inside yourself and say, what is the source of my anger? What is the source of it? Find that, look for it. And then each time you come to the source, you can say Allah, or you can say the Astaghfirullah Al-Azim, and you can wash the source. It's kind of like a rag. You're washing the rag with those dhikrs until the source disappears. If we say it fanas out, it disappears away. It goes away. So you want to continue to wash until you get the fana of the source of that light. When you get that, your anger will disappear. It will not bubble up anymore. So that's the piece. I see that you are working with it, but you're still up in the naf level. Your anger is coming from much deeper inside your heart, in the second level. So you're going to have to go much deeper than you've traveled, maybe even to your soul, to understand where this anger emanates from and then to clear it at its source. Okay, good. So I hope that answers your question, and appreciate it. And let's go on to the next question here. This is coming in from Kalamazoo. So I've heard people energetically attach to our luminous bodies. I have heard people energetically attach to our luminous bodies, and it can manifest in our physical bodies. How would we know when this happens, and what can we do to protect ourselves? Okay, this has been an interesting question. I was going to answer this one way, and then as I was looking at it, I was getting guidance to actually go in a different direction. The direction that I want to go in here is the following, which is that we have to not be afraid. In other words, the key is not to be afraid of people energetically attaching to you. If they attach, they can disattach. They can disengage. In other words, so don't be afraid of that. Stay with Allah, and as you stay with Allah, His light will wash whatever is, quote-unquote, attaching to you away. So don't be afraid of it. Stay with Allah. Stay with the love. If you feel like something's attached to you, just simply embrace it with love. Bring the love to it, care for it, find out what it needs, what it wants, give it the love, bring Allah into it, join it with Allah, and you'll see that it either will heal it or it will simply will disengage it, or if you're with Allah, it may not attach at all. Okay, so thank you very much for that question. We're going to go on. This is another question coming now in from Brooklyn. How can one discern the differences between real holy light and false light? Okay, a very, very good question, excellent question. And this is a problem for many people because, again, we say, there's many statements about the devil quoting scripture, which is a saying that sometimes the false can pretend to be the real. So how do we know this, astaghfirullah, how do we know the false from the real? The key is the name. In other words, when you say the name Allah, in the world of imagination, when you close your eyes, in the imagination, you will see that there is a light that appears in your unconscious mind. Okay? So when that light appears in your unconscious mind, you will be able to use that light in discerning the real from the false. Okay? So what I mean by that is to, as you bring this forward, let whatever you're looking at enter into that light inside of you, and that will discern from you what is real and what is false. If it's false, and you put it into that light, it will actually turn black inside. In other words, the false will turn black inside when you put it in the light, and the real will actually turn white inside. Okay, so if you apply that to this situation, that's how you can discern the difference between the real holy light and the false light by using the light from the name. Okay, thank you very much for that question, and let me go on to the next question here. Hold on just a second as I scroll down to it. Okay, this is coming in from Athens. Okay, how do we change patterns of behavior that aren't contributing to our well-being? This is from Energy Mastery School alumni. At the time, the key was ART, but I haven't been in the healing school for 10 years now. Okay, good question. So how do we change behaviors that aren't contributing to our well-being? Okay, the answer is very simple to this. We take time to go inside, and we sit with the behavior, and we watch it. We feel it. Then we begin to look for the source of it. And the source of all behaviors, believe it or not, is actually a picture inside of our being. We call it an image. When you go deep enough and you go past the behavior, you'll come to the feelings. When you go past the feelings, you'll actually come to the images that are deep inside of us that drive the behavior. When you find the image, I call that the source, you then wash the image. You use the name Allah or the Tawbah, Astaghfirullah name, and you wash that image. And when you do that, the pattern of behavior will instantaneously change because it disappears. Okay, hope that helps you. Thank you very much, and good to have you on the call and to hear your voice in the email. Okay, next question. If God is love and God is unity, then why do we have to surrender to one religion, only qualification? The Mormons say they're it, Sidi says he has, and Muslims say they have it. It seems that the presence of God as love and unity brings the grace with it. I know so many sincere and high-quality spiritual people doing wonderful things, including you. I pray that we can all hold more of an inclusive unity and not have so many fear-based rules. Can you please speak to this? And this person goes on to say, since a lot of us, as sincere adults who want to work with you, have walked 20 to 30 years with a more universal philosophy, which is good, and which is already producing wonderful results in the world, like Lynn Twist's Hunger Project and the Pachamama Foundation. I was born as a Quaker, so I deeply believe in loving service and pacifism. That includes everyone. I listen to the inner light. Thank you. Yeah, by the way, I agree with you. I think that, as I said before, that the surrender to the God is the central part of all paths. The surrender to God is the central part of all good paths, and that we need to surrender to God, and that's the foundation of it. I think the next thing, which, and this is the issue I think that you may be confronting here, which is that when we surrender to God, that there actually is things that increase that inner light and our connection to divinity, and things that move us away from that inner light. And actually, those things they cross all lines. In other words, if you tell the truth, the inner light expands. If you lie, the inner light collapses, for example. Okay? So, for me, I'm not saying that you have to be in any religion, really. And for me, there really is only one religion, which is the religion of unity, the religion of God, which is the religion of love. And in that, if you follow it, you'll see that things will either expand you or they will contract you. So, in answer to your question, you don't have to become anything. You don't have to be anything, and all people are seeking to know God, and all people are doing God's work, are trying to, who are on a spiritual path. However, the real question I think you need to ask inside yourself is that once you find your connection to God, are you really following it? Are you in the connection, the witnessing of that light, the understanding of what that love and light is, and are you following it? If you are, we say, alhamdulillah, it means you're on your way. But if you're not, and you believe you are, it doesn't matter what religion you are. You can be Quaker or Christian or Jew or Muslim or Sufi or anything. If you're not following that, then, it's only going to create suffering inside of yourself. Okay, thank you very much for that question. Okay, so the next question, we'll go a little bit off the godly subjects here. We're going into a relations subject, which I think is good. Question is, I'm not sure where it's from, but here is my question. In Allah's order, should a woman wait for a man to come to her? Thank you. And the answer to that is each order is different. In other words, you have to go inside and really sit and be in remembrance until you're clear what's being asked of you. In other words, are you being asked to wait, or are you being asked to express yourself and go out and talk to the person? And so do you wait for the man to come to you, or do you go to the man? And the answer is both are okay. And there are times for both. But you have to get clear from Allah, from God, which is the right way to move. Okay? So always remember that. And remember that the light of God is love, and that if you sit with the love, or you sit with the love, or you sit with the light of God, or Allah, they're all same thing, that the answers will come to you very, very clearly, and you will know. Okay, the next question is, my mother recently had a stroke in October. I have been required to move in with her to take care of her. My question is, how do I find and express the love to a person who has been a lifelong severe abuse and neglect relationship and who I have avoided as much as possible? How do I get to the love and forgiveness when I'm feeling when I'm currently feeling much resistance, anger, hurt, and necessarily self-protection? How do I take care of myself in this situation as well? Okay, this is, again, a very good question. And, again, remember, first of all, that our ability to hold our parents in love is a sign of how deeply we've walked. So if you are being put with your mom who had a stroke and that you're being required to take care of her, this is a very holy gift for you. In other words, that this is the chance for you to walk through all your incompletions that are needed. Your mom, I'm sure, is difficult. I'm sure that she's not easy for you. But remember, the more you love her, you will change her. And the more you care for her, your love will flow into her and she will change. And this gives you the chance to work through all of your own issues as well. And you know how to do that. Face those things and walk through them, and step after step, things will get better for you. So I wish you luck with that, and just know this is a wonderful, wonderful possibility for you. Excuse me. So I want to remind everybody that if you feel that this is a way that you'd like to travel, that this is helpful for the new people, that there will be an upcoming teleclass January 7th. It'll meet every 2 weeks, starting at 5:30 Pacific time. And you can get the numbers off the website. And that class will meet and go over the foundational teachings. There are 5 classes that will open the way for you to sort of learn how to work in this way. The first teaching will be about the remembrance and the practices, how to do the remembrance and how to apply the remembrance. The second class will be about purification and healing, and we'll look at how to actually purify and heal whatever may be coming up in yourself, the pain or the separation or whatever you're feeling. The third class is one of my favorites. It's about Tauba, and we'll really go into the different aspects of Tauba, the return. Sidi, the guide of this way, has said that Tauba precedes every station, every state, and every level of purification. It's sort of the master teaching, the teaching of teachings. So Tauba is very, very important. We will then be looking at how do we access gnosis and divine wisdom. Gnosis being the light of the divine. How do we receive the knowledge from it and the wisdom from it so that we can make change in our life? That will be the fourth one. And the fifth one is divine manifestation. In other words, how to know what the divine or God wants for us. How do we align with it, and then how do we bring that manifestation into our life? And we'll go over the steps of divine manifestation as well. So that's the upcoming teleclass. There will also be teleclasses, various ones. One will be the Stations of the Way, which will be the class that comes after this one. We'll go through the series of stations you need to walk through. And for the more advanced students who've been here for a while, we'll be starting teleclasses on the reality of gnosis. We'll be going through the teachings of gnosis and how to open up that reality and enter into that reality. We'll also be doing a live streaming video class as well, which will be, you'll find that, God willing, on the website, so you can look into that as well and the topics that will be discussed there. All right, well, I want to thank you all very much. I apologize to many of you I did not get to your questions here. I would like to start offering an ongoing question and answer class. So if you would send me, if you feel that would be helpful to you. Also, the time, if it needs to be evening, if some of you are available more in the daytime hours, lunchtime or something like that, that would be good for me to know. Also, I'm getting a last email here. Yes, the cost for the teleclass is $125. If you sign up before January 1st, it goes up to $145 after January 1st. Okay, everybody, I thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure to be with all of you. I pray and I ask that the Most High protects everybody here, keeps you safe over this month, Christmas and New Year's, that everybody steps into a good New Year, that Allah blesses everybody here with a new and a good New Year, and a happy and a safe and a healthy New Year. And I pray for those of you that are wishing to know the peace and the love and the mercy, that the doors are opened so that you can go deeper into godly reality, into the divine realities of love and peace and mercy, and that we all bring more love and more light and more understanding into our lives, both for ourselves and for all those people who are important to us. So thank you all very, very much, and my love to all of you.